The two best teams in the NFL lucked their ways into wins again this week in Week 12. That and a whole lot more on this edition of the PTW podcast. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Week 12 preview part 2 of the PTW podcast. I say part 2 because we talked about the Thanksgiving slate games earlier in the week, and now here we are post-Thanksgiving. 4 NFL games have been played so far this week, as opposed to the one that usually happens on Thursday, and we've got a whole new slate of games that is happening in the rest of that Week 12 here on Sunday. I am Amir from the PTW podcast, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend Tossie, the football Greek. This week, repping the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, yeah.
Conspicuously not wearing his 49ers hat.
Let's switch it up, man. Switch it up. We're trying to give the Dubs a little luck, man. They started off hot. They were number 1 in the West. They started off at like a 12-3 start, and now they're 12-7. They lost 4 in a row. So I'm trying to.
There's a lot of basketball left to be played, my friend.
Little spark here.
A lot of basketball left to be played. But I talked about it a little bit. I alluded to it, if you will, at the beginning of this episode. And that is that the two best teams in the NFL record-wise, we can argue if they are actually the best teams in the NFL, but record-wise, the two best teams in the NFL, both of them won games that they theoretically should have lost or could have lost, at least had a very good chance of losing.
Is a better word.
We're going to start with the NFC, and that is, are the Detroit Lions overrated? And before anyone gets pissed off in the comments, let's let you know where we're coming from here. And I know you're going to allude to this a little bit. I'm just going to give a little precursor. The Detroit Lions have blown away the teams that they're supposed to, the teams that are weaker than them, and they have kind of inched by the teams that are like on their level, if not maybe like a microscopic level below them. Chicago is tiers below them, and yet it became a very competitive game in the fourth quarter. And if it wasn't for a certain coach who no longer works for the Chicago Bears, they might have had a real shot of winning the game. But you go ahead. I'm going to pass the baton off to you. What are your thoughts on this Detroit-Chicago game?
So, first of all, the coach obviously should have been fired. Eberflus, he stinks as a head coach, and he stunk for a while. He stunk last year. He stinks this year. I mean, he was done. He was done. I mean, after he gives the answer, after they totally screw up a makeable field goal at the end of the game to tie the game, he comes on and he says, "Hey, I didn't make any mistake. I didn't do anything wrong." Like, really, bro? You totally messed that up. And then your quarterback, he obviously messed it up too. Like, he should have had a little better awareness than to like throw a deep pass on top of it.
Someone on that team, anyone on that team, it boggles my mind that of the 11 players on the field, all those coaches, not one person was like, are we not taking a timeout? Like, why are we not taking a timeout?
Let's do something smart here.
Someone go into business for yourselves. What's going to happen? Like, you're going to save your team? Like, it's like, hey, timeout, dude.
Well-deserved firing, in my opinion. I mean,
100%.
Everybody was kind of like, he's getting an axe. It was like pretty clear that was going to happen after such a monumental F-up. But, going back to Detroit, who was in that situation to basically where Chicago could have tied the game and then potentially won in overtime. Honestly, Detroit hasn't really looked that dominant is the key word here, against good teams or even mediocre teams. But the bad teams, they've crushed. They've
destroyed them.
They do good against the bad teams. But when it comes to the good teams or the mediocre teams, they just kind of barely get by. They throw a bunch of interceptions in that Houston game. They barely skate by. They have Chicago basically totally screw up and let them just barely skate by. So honestly, I don't think Detroit is as dominant as an 11-1 team should be. Same thing I would say for the Chiefs, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think Detroit, like, would you even put Jared Goff in the MVP running? No. how would you say their running game? Like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, really good backs, but honestly, Jahmyr Gibbs, he fumbles a lot. He fumbled again in this game, and David Montgomery's injury prone. He gets hurt a lot. So he got hurt in the game before. The guy, he's a great running back, but he gets hurt a lot. And then their pass catchers, they're good. They're good players. Like they're really like Sam Laporta had a really good game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's always solid. But like really, you got Jameson Williams. He's like making stupid mistakes, throwing the ball at a guy on the sideline, throws it in his face. He probably should have been ejected for that, but they didn't eject him. They gave him the kind of the 15-yard and the warning. But you throw a ball in a guy's face, like that's an ejection.
Yeah.
But honestly, like when I look at their talent level, like they got really talented guys, but they've lost a lot on defense. They've lost Aiden Hutchinson. They lost Alex Anzalone. They've lost a lot on defense, and it's starting to show. And I think at this point, I want to say Detroit has peaked, and they're gonna have some. They got the toughest part of their schedule now coming up. They've got games with the Packers. They have a game even with my crummy Niners, which I think they even have a chance to beat them, even though it's at the end of the month. And we'll see what the Niners do, but I still think that they have a chance to beat them. And they've got some other harder games. They got Buffalo coming up.
They've got the Bills.
So we'll see how it goes. So let's see if I'm proven right and Detroit goes on. I have a feeling they're going to kind of go on a little losing streak here. So that's just my opinion. I think even the Packers may even beat them next week. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see next Thursday how that goes. But I do see Detroit kind of taking a step back here. I feel like they've peaked. I think Jared Goff's going to kind of turn back into what he is. It's kind of like a mediocre quarterback. And, we'll see if the Lions can even get the number 1 seed in the NFC with the Vikings and Packers potentially beating each other next.
So I hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my rebuttal.
Okay.
If they beat, and they've already beaten the Packers in Lambeau, by the way.
Yeah.
And that was a convincing win. That wasn't a 2.3 point win. They won by a touchdown or something like that.
Did Jordan Love play in that game?
It was a few weeks ago. It was week 9. So I would assume so.
Okay.
I would assume he did.
10-point win. I don't know if it's that
Nonetheless, if they beat the Packers this week on Thursday Night Football, and if they beat the Buffalo Bills, they're the real deal. They're the real deal. That's all I'm saying. This is a league of ifs, right?
Yeah.
If this, then this. If this, then this. And if the Detroit Lions, now the Buffalo's coming to Detroit, so it's a home game for Buffalo.
Yeah.
It's a home game for Detroit. But nonetheless, the Bills are on fire right now. They are easily one of the top tier echelon teams in the league right now.
Teams. Yeah.
They're easily top 3 teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit handles them. I'm convinced, because at the end of the day, Tasi, what you and I are talking about is sure, like they're winning the Chicago game was you never know. Even if Chicago was smart enough to take the timeout, maybe they missed the field goal.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't. These are things. These are hypotheticals we're talking about. We're saying they should have done this, but they shouldn't have been in that position at the beginning.
Exactly.
100%. I agree with that. 100%. I agree with that. But
they're dominant.
No team in the NFL this year, to me, is a dominant team. There isn't a single one.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because even if you want to point to the Chiefs, no, the Chiefs have squeaked by many games here and there. If you want to point to the Bills squeaked by the Dolphins, man. I don't want to hear that they've been killing people left and right, because they haven't.
No,
there
they haven't either.
Single dominant team in the NFL this year. You've had teams that are winning more often than other teams. Obviously, they have more win percentage. So the Eagles are on a run right now. The Lions are on a run right now. The Bills are on a run right now. You need to ride momentum, and you need to win the games that you basically put. Things got to go your way. All right.
Yeah. It's the margin of victory is really small. Like,
listen,
you look at like the teams that are losing. They look at the Niners. They lost these 3 division games where they should have won. They lost in the fourth quarter at the end of the game.
Bro,
They could easily be 8-3 right now,
if
right? So I mean,
David
are they a good team?
Tyree,
No, not
if
really.
David Tyree doesn't catch the football on his head like this,
Yeah,
the Patriots would be an undefeated team,
Super Bowl champ. Yeah,
undefeated Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
So many things can go wrong and so many things can go right. Okay. So I'm not here ready to call them frauds. I'm not ready to call them overrated. They're winning games. And the only thing that matters in the NFL or in the NBA or any freaking league is how many W's you get. And right now, the Detroit Lions have a lot of them. And you can't point to, like, you can make an argument with like the Kansas City Chiefs that like they've been getting help left and right and they've been getting super lucky. But we'll talk about we'll be talking about
the refs help.
We'll talk about them. But as far as the Lions go, listen, this is what hard-nosed, excuse me, I keep saying tough-nosed, hard-nosed football teams do. They find a way to win these dirty, boring games. And that Chicago game, at one point, Detroit was up like 16-0 or something like that. Like the game was like so lopsided.
Yeah.
Chicago found life in the fourth quarter. It made it a game. It made it an interesting game.
Yeah.
And then Matt Eberflus refuses to call a timeout for some godforsaken reason. And so we never get to see if Chicago would have completed the comeback.
Yeah.
So that's my rebuttal. I get where you're coming from. My rebuttal is they're winning games, right? And they're winning games not from some fluky stuff, but like from other teams' mishaps or them finding ways to win. But the Detroit Lions were not the only team that played on Thanksgiving. A whole two other games happened. Real quick, the New York Giants got beat by the Dallas Cowboys like everyone thought they would be.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys have now won 2 in a row. And it begs the question, can the Cowboys make a run here for the rest of the season? As I pull up the schedule, what are your thoughts real quick on how the Cowboys performed? We're officially feeling the rush of Cooper Rush again.
Yeah, honestly, it's their defense. The Cowboys defense is playing much better. Micah Parsons is back. They got another defensive touchdown. I think they had a special team score the week before and a defensive touchdown the week before. So their defense is starting to really play well and starting to help them get wins. And I actually think the Cowboys are going to make a little run here. I mean, they have 7 losses. They're not out of it technically. So can they, keep it going? I feel like if you're going to get that wild card slot, they can't lose another game. So because if you look, the Packers and the Vikings, I mean, they have 2 and 3 losses respectively, essentially. I think Vikings have 2 and the Packers have 3. So, I mean, Packers would have to lose 4 games. Potentially they could lose this week to Detroit. And then they've lost 5. So then they're, it's getting a little closer. But the Cowboys can make a run. I mean, they got the Bengals, which are beatable. They got the Panthers, the Buccaneers. The Eagles are going to be a tough game. They could beat the Commanders
and
again.
They finished the season. They finished the season against the Commanders.
Yeah. Week 18, really, like they could essentially win all of those games. Potentially, like they could definitely win the next 3. The tough game is going to be the Eagles game. And then if they, just depending on where things are, maybe the Eagles have lost a couple in that sense. Maybe the Eagles lose to the Ravens this week. Maybe the Eagles lose to, another team moving forward. And then the Cowboys are just a couple games behind them. So, we'll see where things go. But, honestly, like they can make a run, in my opinion.
Or the Carolina Panthers play spoiler, man, because the Carolina Panthers almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
It's true.
And we'll see how they do this week. But we'll see. But as far as the rest of the Thanksgiving week games or Thanksgiving week games go, Thursday night football was the Miami Dolphins against the Green Bay Packers. And listen, man, I have followed my team for as long as I have followed my team. And when they got the 3-and-out, I was really excited. And then muffed punt return.
Yep.
Not a muffed punt, but a muffed punt return, right? Because Green Bay kicked the ball, no problem. Miami couldn't receive the ball. The second that play happened, I knew the game was over. And not because I was like doom and gloom. It's just it killed so much momentum. So much momentum gets destroyed.
It did.
And the defense deflated after that. You could tell they were really
Yeah.
feeling themselves. They were about to get some well-needed
Yeah.
rest, and then boom, they have to go right back on the
They're
field
back on the
and
field.
defend 10 yards before Green Bay scores their first touchdown.
Yeah.
I think the narrative of that like Tua, for example, can't play in the cold. I think that narrative is dead. I think he played quite well in the
He
cold.
did.
I don't think the
He had a
loss is on
huge
him.
fantasy game.
The loss is not on him. The Miami Dolphins do not have a run game, period. They do not. And it's stunning to say that with Devon Achane, with Jalen Wright, with Raheem Mostert, with Jeff Wilson Jr., and yet they do not have a run game. And this all goes down to Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, historically in his coaching career with the Miami Dolphins, is 2-13 against winning teams. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a damning stat. It is a damning stat, right? You've beaten the Ravens and the Bills in back-to-back games in your first season as head coach, and that's it. Every other game that you were supposed to win, or not that you were supposed to win, but like you were challenged by a good team, you've lost.
Yeah.
And I think it'll eventually be his downfall. Do I think he gets fired this year? No, I don't. But I think it will be his downfall.
I think you get one more year.
Yeah, he'll get one more year because he definitely does bring the best out in Tua, but unfortunately the rest of the team just doesn't respond, right?
Yeah. Honestly, like they had a real opportunity to beat them. Like the Packers, I honestly don't think they're that good.
Miami lost the game. They didn't get beat by
Miami lost that game.
Miami lost the game.
They kind of gave it to Green Bay. They even though they're coming back and they woke up in the second half, they get the ball. They're on the goal line.
They were on the 1 yard line and they couldn't
score. He calls some stupid plays at the goal line instead of just getting the big back in there, get
Mostert in there
or right and just have him run straight ahead
or somebody
three
bulldoze in there,
get into the end zone.
Bulldoze in there.
Come on.
Or
they
run a
quarterback touchdown there. They probably win that game.
I'm
telling you. And I even texted you that. Like they had all the momentum, and it was the same thing with the Niners. The Niners had the momentum in the second half. Green Bay was just waiting for them to give them the game. It was like almost the same exact script. Green Bay gets off to this lead. Then the second half, it's like pretty clear that they're flat, and the other team just can't take advantage. And it happened 2 weeks in a row. We'll see how they do against Detroit this week, but I really don't think Green Bay's that good. I really don't think Jordan Love's that good either. I mean, he's making some stupid plays.
They have flourishes. I think the best thing about Green Bay is their coach. I think Matt LaFleur is a very good football coach.
They're a well-coached team.
Is okay, but Matt LaFleur is a very good coach, and they're a well-coached team. Absolutely. But this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, right? Like there are teams that capitalize on that kind of stuff, like the Green Bay Packers, and there are teams that are not capitalizing on that kind of stuff. Okay, like the Niners, like the Dolphins, like whoever else, right? They're not capitalizing on these opportunities that are being given to them. The teams that are capitalizing are the ones that are winning. The ones that aren't capitalizing are not. That's pretty much it.
Goes back to what we're talking about. Yeah, it's like there's not that much discrepancy. Teams.
No, this year there is
kind of winning. Like the teams that are winning are not making the mistakes, or they're getting the breaks and they're finishing the games. And then the ones that are losing are like making the mistakes at the end, or not calling the timeout, or not kicking the field goal. These like stupid little things that happen. And like, does that make you a bad team or a great team? Doesn't either, right? So it's like everybody's just kind of mediocre, or like on the skirting of good to very good to okay.
Who are the really bad teams in the NFL?
They're awesome.
The really bad teams in the NFL are the ones who have already fired their coaches.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, those are the really bad teams in the NFL.
There should be more coming. I think Antonio
Pierce
Jets next.
It's the Bears,
the Raiders. It's gonna be Deion Sanders with Shador.
The Raiders. Yeah, we'll see, man. The Raiders, I kind of feel bad for that. They were set up to fail. They were set up to fail. They should have won that game. Minshew is your freaking quarterback, and when it's not Gardner Minshew, who's out for the rest of the season, is Aiden O'Connell. Exactly. So like, they were just set up to fail from the beginning. When you got,
he played a pretty good game.
Sure.
And they were in why? They had the opportunity to win. Brock Bowers is a beast. That guy is amazing. Jacoby Myers is really good. He's a really good number one receiver. He was getting open, and then even their fourth string running back was like gashing them. Either like McCormick and like Abdullah, and honestly, they should have beat the Chiefs. But then
I'm not afraid to say this. I'm not afraid to say this. The Chiefs should be scared for the rest of the season because
they're not
teams
that
that
good.
they should have blown out, teams that they should have
Carolina,
absolutely blown out,
Raiders.
they have barely beaten. Okay.
Yeah.
They after week 8, 27-20 win against the Raiders. That's a team that you should have blown out.
Yeah.
Right.
30
Okay.
to 24.
30-24 against
Denver
the Buccaneers.
Broncos. They should have lost.
Overtime.
Field
They
goal.
should have lost that game. Broncos
Field
game.
goal.
They should have lost. Buffalo
They
game.
lost.
They lost that game. Carolina almost beats you.
Could have
And
lost.
the Raiders almost beat you.
Should have beat you. They should have beat them.
The two teams in the NFL that you could point to and be like, yeah, those are two pretty bad teams in the NFL. Almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Almost. And
honestly,
by the way, one of them was on the road against Carolina, and one of them was at home in Kansas City.
Yeah, that was at home in the cold against the Raiders, and they should have lost. And the only reason they didn't is because the stupid center snapped the ball early. And honestly, the refs screwed up that penalty call because that's a false start. Nobody was set on the line. It should have been they called it a legal formation pre-snap. That's a pre-snap penalty. That should not have been a down that counts. It should have been a 5-yard penalty, false start on the center who snapped the ball before everybody was set, and then they should have gotten the ball back and been able to try another play and get a field goal. They were in field goal range. I mean,
has there ever been a false start on a center though who snapped the ball early? Because if you snap the ball early,
yeah,
technically the play started.
If they're not set, it's supposed to be a false start. Like,
I don't know. I've seen that happen.
They're
I've seen that happen a lot.
The rules for the Chiefs.
No,
I've seen the rules for the Chiefs.
No,
this is the Chiefs.
I'm gonna push back.
They changed the rules.
Push back.
It was the Chiefs. The Chiefs always get the breaks. They get the rule changes mid-game. The refs don't remember the rules, and then suddenly they're getting all these breaks. No way.
No, I've seen it happen way too many times.
The center was saying
way too many times where the quarterback is like this. He's like looking away, and like all of a sudden the ball like hits him in the face mask because he doesn't expect it.
That was when they're set. They called what they called because they threw the flag, and they said it was. Because they don't throw a flag in those situations. Right? If he throws it, if he snaps it early, they don't throw the flag, right? It's just a fumble. But they threw the flag. Why? Because they weren't set. So what they called was, instead of a false start, they called an illegal formation, and they let them run the play. But it was a pre-snap penalty. So they should have allowed them to run the play. They changed the rules for the Chiefs. Like, we can't let the Chiefs lose. It was a fumble. Give it the ball. Nobody wants to check the rules. We called an illegal formation.
I don't know. I don't buy that because if that play went off without a hitch and the Raiders actually down the ball or get into field goal range, what's the excuse then, right? Like, well, they have to find something else, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, I think
they still threw the flag pre-snap.
Look, the Raiders messed up. Okay, that's it. Yeah. The Raiders messed up.
Stupid center.
The Raiders messed
You're
up.
an idiot.
That is what a bad team looks like.
Chiefs.
Sure, but that is what a bad team looks like, right? That is what a bad team looks like. But if I was Kansas City, if I was a fan of the Chiefs, I genuinely would be worried because these back-to-back games.
Bro, why do they got to be worried? They already won 2 championships and nobody even cares. Like, their fans are weak, bro. I was at the Super Bowl. There was nobody even who cared at the Super Bowl. It was literally the quietest win I've ever heard. There was crickets. It's 5 people in the stadium.
When you expect, well, I don't know, but nonetheless,
everyone's like, these we won.
Concern me. And granted, they were 5 days apart, but they still kind of concern me a little bit. Nonetheless, all right.
So we move on to the preview.
Yeah, let's talk about. We talked about Chicago. We were going to talk about Chicago firing Eberflus, but I think one thing I just wanted to talk about was I think this is what are we doing? Why didn't this happen at the beginning of the season? Why didn't it happen
last year?
4 games into the season? Why didn't it happen in the middle of last season? Why did you waste Caleb Williams's first season with this dude, and then get the offensive coordinator fired to bring in the dude to upgrade or promote the offensive coordinator who's actually helping him now, who's now the interim coach? I don't understand what the thinking of any of this was. But but sure.
Nobody does.
I mean,
Ryan Williams, man, I think he's a good GM, bro. He was making some moves, doing some stuff. But honestly, like I do think that Caleb Williams is better than Justin Fields. Like he's a better he has a
oh yeah, I would agree with that.
better
Yeah, I would
presence.
definitely
He's
agree
a
with that.
better
Yes.
thrower of the football. Like he, even though he didn't show good game awareness in that moment, you know, he should have just clocked the ball. You know, like realizing like, hey, I only got freaking 5 seconds left. I'm not gonna be, and he throws it deep of all stuff. Like it was like, bro, just throw it on a bounce quick. You're not like, what are you doing? So anyway, like I do think they've made some good moves in the front office. They like picked up Montez Sweat. They like solidified the defense. Like they were making moves to be better. And honestly, like let's see if this catapults them to like a victory. I know that they are playing the Niners next week. Like the Niners have to play against Buffalo, and then they're coming home to play Chicago. So we'll see. Like it worries me a little bit because I was like, oh yeah, the Niners should beat Chicago. I was like, they got to, because if they lose to Buffalo, they pretty much have to win out. They got to go 10-7 to like make the playoffs, and they get Arizona. They get Arizona at the last game of the season, so like potentially could still win the West, even if because they could beat these teams, right? Maybe Detroit at home is going to be the toughest test, but honestly, now that Chicago fired their head coach, I'm like, shit. Because usually the next game is always, it's like a momentum game. And like, I could see Chicago also coming out and winning that game now. And the Niners coming out flat because they're like, oh yeah, we can beat Chicago. Because that's kind of what they've done all year. They've underestimated their opponents. They played down to the competition. That's why they've let Seattle and Arizona and LA beat them. All these teams that are clearly not that good. Like, talk about the worst division in football, NFC West, hands down. And honestly,
some could argue the most competitive division in football.
Yeah, no,
you could look at it in two ways. Glass half full is most competitive division in football.
Really terrible
Although
division.
you could make that argument with the NFC North too, right? Because with the Vikings and the Packers and the Lions all kind of vying.
Well, that's the most competitive.
And then Chicago being like all the way down there.
Yeah. That's true.
Nonetheless, let's talk about the rest of week 12. There's some fun games to be had in week 12. We'll start with your beloved Niners against my dreaded Bills.
Sunday night football.
It is Sunday night football. And before we got started, you have faith in this in your team to actually do something. I don't.
Nobody's picking them. Nobody's picking me. You're not picking them. Our buddies are not picking them. Everyone's calling me a homer. Dude, I'm not a homer, man. I'm realistic. The Niners absolutely have to try and win this game. They're not going to go up to Buffalo.
Sure, they have to try to win.
They're not going to go up to about that. Buffalo, to me, is one guy. Josh Allen. One guy. Oh yeah, he's one guy.
Oh, I disagree.
It's one guy. It's Josh Allen. Their defense is okay. They're going to be playing in the snow, and we'll see. That could take away some of Josh Allen's being ability to throw the ball accurately. I know it's going to take away Purdy's, but the Niners are going to win this game. They got to stick to the run. They got to get Jordan Mason going. They got to get CMC going. They got to pound the football. They got to do what Shanahan does best and run the ball in those run schemes. I know they're not going to have Trent Williams for this game. They're not going to have Bosa for this game. It's going to be tough. Purdy's playing on a limited, shoulder, so he's not going to probably be able to have that much arm strength because he hasn't been throwing the ball with too much zip because of his shoulder. So they're going to have to run the ball and just play really solid defense. And I think they have a chance to win the game if they do that. If they don't run the ball, if they're just giving it to McCaffrey and he's, 2 yards to carry, on these runs like he has been doing, they're going to lose. They give the ball to Jordan Mason in the snow, get him to loosen up the defense, get some hard-nosed football, and then you bring McCaffrey in as a change of pace. They got to switch it up. They can't do what they've been doing. If I was the coach, that's what I would do. That's what everybody around here is calling for. They're like, we need to get more juice in the run game. Jordan Mason was basically leading the league in rushing for the first 5 weeks. He had the most rushing yards in Niners franchise history through the first 4 weeks. And then you're not going to even give him but 1 or 2 carries a game when McCaffrey comes back. You must be stupid. It's stupid. He's
Mhm.
clearly showing on tape that he's better right now. It's
Mhm.
okay. We can say that because McCaffrey is coming off an injury and he has bilateral Achilles tendonitis. It's like the dude is like, probably cautious. He's like mentally thinking like I could just blow out both my Achilles right now if I try to like like hit this hole like as
Yep.
hard as I can. So
Yep.
they got to be smarter, man. They got to get this guy involved. He's a good running back. He's got a lot of juice. He's quick to the hole, and he breaks tackles. The guy's a beast. Get him out there in the snow. Let him pound these guys a little bit, man. Come on. That's my take. I think the Niners can win if they do that, but they probably won't because Shanahan he's not in his bag this year. He's who knows. He's graying.
I have an opinion.
Yeah.
And I was going to talk to you about this. That's kind of like a side thing, but we can talk about it right now.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it for a
Yeah,
few minutes
go
before we
ahead.
preview the rest of the games.
Yeah.
I think the Gary Kubiak coaching tree is overrated.
Shanahan. Mike Shanahan. It's the
Shanahan.
Mike Shanahan. That's where it comes from. So it goes
Sure.
Shanahan
Mike
to Kubiak.
Shanahan, Kubiak.
Yeah, Mike Shanahan. Mhm.
Nonetheless, it's overrated.
So you think it's overrated? Yeah,
I
because you got
100%.
everybody pretty much. LaFleur,
With the exception,
Mike
I think
McDaniels.
Sean McVay,
Sean McVay,
and
Kyle Shanahan.
Kyle Shanahan.
Even Clint Kubiak now he's in New Orleans as the OC. Like
Robert
that
Saleh.
tree is everywhere, bro. Like Saleh, D'Amico Ryans. Come on, bro. So it's overrated in your mind? I mean, I think where's Andy Reid's coaching tree, bro?
Name me exactly.
Like non-existent.
Where's Bill Belichick's coaching tree?
Yeah, that's
exactly
that's
right?
terrible too. So I mean, come on. So everybody's on that Shanahan tip, bro. I don't know. That's me.
Yeah,
but
which one of them has actually done anything, with the exception of Sean McVay? And Sean McVay, I would argue, just had a really good team that year. They piecemealed together a really good team.
And they got lucky that Jaquiski Tartt cannot catch just like I'm gonna throw it to you and you're gonna ice the game because we're up 10 and you can't catch, bro. I mean, the dude literally after that he's out of the league. He's gone. He dropped that interception and he's gone.
My point exactly. I think that this coaching tree is a bit overrated. I mean, it's just it doesn't. Matt LaFleur is the only one to me who's consistent, and that's because he had Aaron. He had Aaron.
Love Matt LaFleur. What has that guy done? He's not done it. He's lost so many times to the Niners. Like they finally beat him. They finally won.
Aaron Rodgers lost to the Niners first and foremost. I don't know if you want to blame Matt LaFleur. I'm pointing out Matt LaFleur because I think he's the most consistent out of all of them. Sure, he had Aaron Rodgers. He had like a surefire NFL, Hall of Famer as his quarterback for the first 4 years of his coaching career. He's even showing with a new quarterback that no one wanted. By the way, nobody wanted Jordan Love. Nobody wanted him. Everyone thought he was washed.
Jordan Love isn't he's not really that good.
I'm not saying he's top 10, okay? But he's winning with him, okay? So that my point is, he's winning
and Malik
him.
Willis.
He's winning without him.
Malik
this
Willis.
is my point. This is my point.
I'll give you a little bit of that.
You want proof that he's a good coach?
This year.
Malik Neighbors. All right?
Yeah.
Not Neighbors.
Or
Malik Willis.
No, Malik Willis. Malik Neighbors is good.
Malik
Neighbors, I'll take.
Malik
don't
Willis
need a good coach for that guy.
Is proof that Matt LaFleur is a good coach. The rest, I am over the sexiness of the Shanahan coaching tree. I honestly am. I'm really quite over it because they have shown that they can't do it. And you're right, Andy Reid. Where's Andy Reid's coaching tree? Touche. Yeah. But it took Andy Reid a while, right? It took him a while. And 4 consecutive NFC championships, one Super Bowl appearance with the Philadelphia Eagles. None of that mattered. Right. It wasn't until he got to Kansas City and he got Patrick Mahomes, which then turned him into this. Right. Yeah. What happened when Bill Belichick and Tom Brady parted ways? All of a sudden, Brady, Belichick stopped, truncated.
Yeah.
Right?
And Brady goes to Tampa Bay and wins the Super Bowl right away
with Bruce freaking Arians. Right. So, anyways, Arians. Who, whatever.
Who he hated.
My point.
He didn't want to play for him anymore. He got him fired the next year.
Anyways, let's keep going down this list. So, the Eagles will travel to Baltimore. Are you want to talk about Texans Jaguars?
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say.
Just looking at the schedule, and I'm like, okay, Texans are gonna win. The Vikings are gonna win.
Are they? No, hold on. Are the Texans gonna win?
Yeah, the Texans are
The
going to beat the
Texans gonna
Jaguars. The
win.
Jaguars are terrible.
We'll
Uh,
see.
yeah, no,
Division
they'll be
game, bro.
good.
We'll see.
Yeah, no, I think
Cardinals and
the Vikings
Vikings.
will beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals are frauds, bro. They're not that good. Come on. It's just
I, I,
come on. What are we doing here, bro? The
I am
Cardinals and Kyler Murray.
so
Like he puts
against
the
you this
controllers
week.
down for just 5 minutes,
I
and now all
am
of a sudden he's
so
like the
against you
greatest thing.
this week. So against you.
Vikings are gonna win. Houston's gonna win.
I'm picking
The
Cardinals.
Colts are gonna win. I mean,
No,
I don't even
the
think the
Colts aren't
Colts are
going to
gonna
win.
win.
The
I think
Patriots
the
are going to win.
Patriots are gonna win.
The Patriots are going to win.
I'm with you.
The
Anthony
Patriots will
Richardson,
win.
he's terrible too. Like, what are we doing here? The Jets and the Seahawks, man. Come on.
The Seahawks are going to win.
Oh no, the Jets will win that game. They're coming off their bye. They're at home. They're gonna win.
The Commanders. Well, the Commanders. This is a good question actually. Will the Commanders break their losing streak against the Titans?
The Titans? Yeah,
Dude,
they'll
the
win.
Titans just won.
I know, but
against
the Titans
the
are terrible. If the
Are
Commanders
they?
lose to the Titans, then they're frauds too.
Of course,
Jaden
that's the
Daniels
whole
should win Offensive Rookie of the Year because, like, that's what I thought he should win.
He shouldn't.
But if they lose to the Titans when they're at home,
I would argue right now.
Will Levis.
No. I would argue right now that if we're talking offensive rookies of the year, it's Bo Nix. I wouldn't even argue it's Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't even argue.
Wow, that's a hot one. I mean, Jaden Daniels definitely has taken steps back in the last few weeks for sure.
He's regressed.
He's regressed. Like throwing off his back foot all the time. Doesn't seem like he's as accurate. Like
teams
with
have
football.
figured him out. Teams have figured him out.
So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, you're right. If Denver keeps winning, I mean, they're probably going to beat Cleveland on Monday night.
I think they will. I think they'll beat Cleveland.
And I think Bo Nix is playing well. I think Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, on the Rich Eisen show, which I've gone on record saying that like that's one of my favorite NFL shows. They did an overreaction segment, and they said basically that the AFC playoff picture, as it currently stands, will be the final AFC playoff picture at the end of the season. And I think I think I agree, because right now you have Denver at 7, you have Chargers at 6, you have Baltimore at 5.
Yeah, Steelers.
And then you have
Kansas City.
Steelers, Kansas City, Buffalo, and whoever's the head of the South. Texans.
Yeah, but Texans lost. Like the Colts are creeping up now, bro.
Anthony Richardson is not taking the Colts to the playoffs. I'm sorry.
I think they're going to lose to the Patriots, like we said. But I could see them losing the Patriots this week. So what's the good game of this week? The good game of this week is
Eagles Ravens.
Yeah,
Eagles and Ravens.
I'll let you tee this one up.
That is going to be okay. So let's talk about this game, because I think this is the put up or shut up game for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, I think the Eagles have done anything and everything to prove to everyone that, as much as it annoys everyone outside of the city of Philadelphia, they're a really good freaking team.
They are.
Sure, Jalen Hurts, we talked with a buddy of ours that like Jalen Hurts is not, whatever, top 10. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But that is a very, very well-run organization. Yeah, and the fact that they were able to swoop in and take Saquon just alone, right? And it might have been pettiness. Yeah. It might have been Nick Sirianni being like, yes, give me Saquon, just so I can rub it in the Giants' face twice a year. Well, look how much that's paid off. I think this is the game where I think if Eagles lose this game, they don't really lose much. But if the Ravens lose this game, the narrative is over. Lamar Jackson is not running for Lamar Jackson is not in MVP conversation. I don't think the Ravens are winning their division. Like it's so many. It could be such a domino effect if they lose this game, right? Yeah. They win this game though, that narrative creeps back up of like, wait, are they on the same level as the Bills? Are they on the same level as the Chiefs? Are they on the same level as the other AFC upper echelon teams? So I think a lot is riding on this for specifically the Ravens.
I think this is a prove it game. I mean, I think both teams have a lot to play for. I mean, Eagles want to stay in the running for the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they could do that with a win here, obviously. And, the Baltimore with Lamar, like they got to show that they can beat these upper echelon teams. And I'll tell you right now, I think Philly's the best team in the NFC right now. Like with Saquon and their defense playing better, and they've got the weapons on offense: AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts, when he's right, he wasn't right in the beginning of the season, but he's starting to play a little bit better. When he's right, he is potentially an MVP candidate. He played that way in the Super Bowl. They probably should have won the Super Bowl as the Chiefs. The Chiefs, again, were getting these BS calls as usual. You got to help this Patrick Mahomes for some reason. Everybody loves Patrick Mahomes.
I've said this before on this podcast, but Jalen Hurts was the MVP of that game.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts was balling in that game.
So I honestly would, if you put Detroit and the Eagles to play in a game right now, I would take the Eagles very easily.
Okay.
And if Detroit doesn't get home field advantage, if they go on the skid that I think they are going to go on, and the Eagles beat Baltimore and they keep winning, the Eagles are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC, and Detroit's going to have to go to the Eagles, and they're not going to win outside at the Link in the middle of January.
Yeah.
When it's cold and snowing, Jared Goff's just going to freeze up like a cold turkey.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't disagree
Thanksgiving.
with you. I don't Thanksgiving was back.
Thanksgiving
Full circle. Full circle.
Let's go. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Full circle.
So,
yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. But I'm going to say right now, where's this game being played? This Baltimore Eagles game. It's in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
I still think the Eagles are going to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Saquon's playing that well.
I don't disagree with you.
So, and Baltimore's defense has been a sieve this year, and they're not going to be able to stop them.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm going to give it to. I think Philly is going to win this game.
And think about it. This is the game of the two teams who picked up the best running back. Off-season acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry versus Saquon Barkley. Like it's going to be.
Well, I mean, this year's been crazy because you got Josh Jacobs, who's been playing really good in Green Bay.
Yep.
You've got Joe Mixon, who's playing really good for the Texans. He's actually, I would say, he's been their best offensive player. He's been way better than C.J. Stroud. Joe Mixon is the reason why the Texans have been winning. Like he has been really good for them. So you're talking about 4 guys who changed teams, and they basically like changed the team.
And they've changed the narrative of spending money on running backs too,
exactly.
Right?
It's maybe you do got to get a really good running back, and you got to pay some money. You can't just have Joe Schmo running the ball. But anyway,
you can't have like some random like 5th round pick and be like, oh, he'll be our bell cow.
Yeah.
But that is the Week 12 preview for tomorrow. We're recording this on Saturday night, so hopefully you'll be able to check this out before it goes live. What's going to go live?
Real quick, before we forget, there's one other game that I just want to touch on, which I think is going to be a fun game, is the Steelers and the Bengals, which is kind of going to be like a rock'em sock'em. I do think the Bengals are going to be able to put up points on the Steelers just because they know each other so well, as division rivals. But I do think in the end that Russ is going to continue his redemption tour and end up getting the win in this game.
Joe Burrow is going to have like 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they're still going to lose. It is what it is.
I can see Russ Wilson like leading a drive at the end of the game and then winning the game in the end. Like that's how it's going to be on a field goal. What's Russ Danger or whatever his name is. But anyways,
he's back
like
in full effect.
Yeah, he's doing his thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our show. As always, if you liked what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe to the PTW podcast. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for listening to us there. Make sure to follow, listen to our other episodes. We make 2 episodes a week here on the PTW podcast. It has been a pleasure. Happy Thanksgiving again to everyone out there.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
See you all
next week.
Yeah. Take care.
More rants coming.